going on, everyone? Welcome back. We had a big night last night. Obviously was election night. Let's go down now. We're going to go to the last card with Albazi and Moreno. We bounced back. We had a really good night. We hit Moreno. We hit Blanchfield. We had a very, very good night in the betting window. From a DFS standpoint, we did the same exact thing. Any shockers on this card? I wouldn't say shockers on this card, but there were guys that definitely underperformed. Jack Shore, I thought would fight a little bit better. I had a little bit more high hopes for Jack Shore. I thought Cody Gibson was great. Cody Gibson was a guy that I was pushing on for the DraftKings end of it very, very hard. I just thought his size, his ability to push a pace, his ability to grapple was going to be very, very good. And it turned out it was. The Romanov fight, I wouldn't say it was a good performance, but like kind of the writing was on the wall with that. It was almost like he's going to come out and he's going to have a night. And I wouldn't say it was a great night, but he came out and he won the fight. Zalal looked great. Jourdain looks fantastic at this weight class. Erin Blanchfield, what a fight. What a fight. This is a girl she's from my hometown. I've been following her for a long time, very, very young. And I said her biggest issue, with this fight is going to be her striking and her ability to wrestle. Her grappling's great, but her ability to wrestle and get it down to the ground and getting her hands on Rose. How is she going to get her hands on her? And she fought fantastic. I mean, the first couple of rounds, it looked very bleak. I didn't think that she was going to win the fight. She looked like she was lost. She looked like she was a step behind. And then all of a sudden, she just started raging this comeback third, fourth, fifth round, and Rose didn't have an answer for her at that point. So what a great win. I'm telling you, if Erin Blanchfield can really tighten up her striking and just really, really hone in on her wrestling a little bit more, the grappling is always going to be there. Her submissions are always going to be there. Don't put it down, but you can kind of put it on the back burner, for a little while and really just start, filling in the holes and caulking the holes that you need fixing. And this girl can be a champion. I mean, there's just no bones about it. So great fight there. Jasmine Jasovicius looks fantastic. I got to be honest with you. I had Mike Mallet tied into 2 parlays, and I'm not going to regret it because he won, but he scared the shit out of me in that fight. He looked terrible in that fight. I don't care what anyone says. I get it. Trevin Giles is a dangerous fighter offensively, but he should have looked a lot better than he did. So I wouldn't say that it was a bad spot because we won. We hit 2 parlays with him, but it wasn't a spot I was proud of because we were laying some juice on that parlay. So overall, good card. We hit majority of the stuff that we laid out, and now we move on. We got Magny versus Prates. I'm just going to break in a couple of these fights just because there's a lot of fights on this. This is kind of a cushioned card. Obviously after this is November 9th. Then November 16th, we have UFC 309. So this is kind of an hors d'oeuvre in between the big card on 309, which is going to be a fantastic card. You got John Jones, Stipe, Oliveira, Michael Chandler, Bo Nickel, Paul Craig, Araujo, Silva. Awesome card. So we're going to have a big, big monster breakdown for that. But let's get into this one. So the first fight on the card, the main event, is Neil Magny versus Prates. And I got to be honest with you, I like Carlos Prates. I think he's a good fighter. I think that there's something about this guy that, I used to say this about Ricardo Mayorga all the time. Ricardo Mayorga was a boxer, and this was a guy who wasn't really that technical, didn't really look that good in the ring as far as like his flashiness and his technical abilities and stuff like that. But he had this raw, unorthodox style about him that he just didn't care. He would be outside the arena before fights smoking cigarettes. Like literally, he would be outside smoking cigarettes. Like he didn't care. And this guy would go 12 rounds. So that's what Prates reminds me of. This is a guy who he's a fighter. It's not really he doesn't consider himself like an athlete. He considers himself like a fighter. This guy smokes cigarettes. I don't know how much he smokes. I don't know if he's a regular smoker, but he smokes cigarettes. You'll see him after fights smoking a cigarette, outside smoking a cigarette. So when you look at that and you look at his track record when he's only gone, 3 rounds a couple times, you got to look at now, look who he's fighting. He's fighting a guy in Neil Magny who's known for his conditioning. He's known for his cardio. He's known to get better as the fight goes on. And let's face it, Neil Magny sometimes does something called Magny you. And he literally will Magny you. This is a guy who is the ultimate gatekeeper right now for the division. He is going to either expose a hole from you or you're going to expose him. And there's no 2 ways about it. It's either he's going to own you or you're going to own him. There's not like, oh, well, this is a war going back and forth. It's either you're going to put it on him early and he's going to drown you late, or you're going to start drowning him and he's not going to be able to come back. That's like the way Magny fights. There's two Magnys. It's the Jekyll and Hyde. So your job now is to figure out which Magny you think is going to show up. Stylistically, this is not a good matchup for him. Stylistically, this is not a good matchup for him. But Prates pushes a pace. He's got good striking. He's very fundamentally sound with his striking. He's got good power, good pop. He reads things very well in there. And sometimes Magny does come in. He doesn't even wrestle. He'll try to stand and he'll try to strike with you. Pillow-fisted, doesn't have a lot of power. But he makes his money with his grinding style. He weathers a storm for the first couple rounds, and he pushes the pace. He gets in on your hips, and he tries to drown you that way. So that's the way this fight's going to go. It's either going to be Prates going to be able to drown him within the first three, or you're going to be looking at a fight where if maybe Prates wins two, third round's a little close, you can expect maybe a live bet on Magny in 4 and 5 maybe to drown him, depending on how he looks like going back to his corner. So, but I can't bank on that. When I'm getting a guy in Prates that I know what he's going to bring, he's consistent. You know what he's going to bring. Whether that style is going to win or lose, that remains to be seen. But when you get a guy in Neil Magny where you don't know which one you're going to get, you're either going to get the guy that's going to drown Prates, who has the ability to do it, or you're going to get the guy who's going to shell up and he's going to get finished within 3 rounds. So, I'm going Prates here. I'm going to say Prates ends this one inside the distance. But like I said, Magny is live. I'm not going to say he's not live. He is live, but this is all contingent on which Magny shows up. Next one, Ricky Turcios and Sopaj. Look, I'm not a big fan of Ricky Turcios. I picked him in his fight against Raul Rojas just because I thought that, and I'm still a believer in this, Ricky Turcios' style fits perfectly in the regional circuits where he can be chaotic. He can bring that war to you, and you can succumb to that. But once you get up to a certain level, that chaos is no good anymore because they've seen it before. They're patient. They're calm. Their breathing patterns are different. And they'll just let you do whatever you want. And if you're technical enough and you're sound enough, it's not that you're laughing at that, but you're just wasting energy now. You're throwing these looping punches. You're getting all chaotic. Like, I'm not going to bite the bait of that. Sopaj is that guy. Like, yes, he's still a little bit raw. He's not this guy, but he is a very technical fighter. Raul Rojas was so young. He's so young that, like, this is a guy also with no stand-up. And I'm like, all right, well, this is something where I could see Rojas taking that bait. Young kid, doesn't really have good striking, really good grappling, but I could see some kind of chaos happening where Ricky Turcios can take advantage of that. Sopaj is a guy who's a very disciplined guy he doesn't look to get caught up in that mixed swing of chaos. So Turcios is going to have to try to extract that from him, and I just don't think he's going to. Everything I've seen on Sopaj on tape, he doesn't seem like he gets baited into things too much. He will get into these little, short-term firefights, then he'll back out. The striking could be interesting. Turcios can, catch him with something wild. That's like Turcios' window sometimes. He will catch you with something like creepy and wild. But if this thing goes to the ground, it's just going to be Sopaj position before submission. Now, I know Turcios is a slick grappler. He gets his hips loose. They crack open, and he'll start trying for submissions and sweeps and stuff like that. Sometimes he has a very good active butterfly guard. But Sopaj is a guy where he gets you down. He's not looking to submit you right away. He's just looking to wrestle. He's looking to get that top control. He's looking to lock your hips down so you can't shrimp out or kind of swivel away. So that's where I think is going to win this fight for Sopaj. I think he's going to be able to get these certain takedowns in certain spots where he's going to be able to lock his hips down. He's going to be able to get that control time. So you're looking at a close round where there's maybe a minute left in a round, and he grabs a double leg or a single leg, takes it to the ground, gets on top of him, causes maybe some slight damage, locks his hips down, and there you go. You got to give him that round. So especially with the optics being on top. So that fight isn't going to be as active as unchained as Turcios wants it to be. So I'm going to go Sopaj. I'm going to go Sopaj by decision. Next one, Gerald Mearshart, and I like to call this guy RDR, Renier de Ritter. So who is Gerald Mearshart? Gerald Mearshart is basically Neil Magny. This is a guy who is a gatekeeper. When you look at his record, you're looking at all of his submissions, and you're like, oh, my God, this is a guy who's super live because he's got so many submissions. And you're right. He is. At many aspects of his game and his fights, you're either going to Mearchart's either going to find that hole on you because you're so raw, you're coming up and you're like, this is the measuring stick for you, or he's not going to find it and he loses. It's kind of the same thing with Neil Magny, but Neil Magny is not on the Gerald Mearchart end, where Magny sometimes just doesn't show up. Mearchart's going to show up, but it's, are you going to succumb, or do you have that hole in your game that he can exploit? So, a lot of times he can, because he's got that slick grappling game. He does have an active guard from his back. But if you have a decent grappling game and you have good top control, or you just have a good takedown defense, he does have decent striking, but it's nothing that you can't get by. When you look at RDR, this is a guy who probably the wrong guy for Gerald Mearchart to have as a measuring stick. This is a guy who's a two-time, middleweight and heavyweight title holder at one championship. He's a black belt in judo, an extremely high level black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, decorated. And you're saying, okay, well, you're taking strength against strength, and it's not often that you're going to say that somebody's a better grappler than Mearchart, because that's usually the path we're looking for, especially on DraftKings. But RDR is the better grappler. He is the better grappler. Obviously, these high-level grapplers don't have great striking. You look at the Mackenzie Derns of the world, and the black belt Hunter, and all these other guys. Their striking comes along. Hani Yaya, their striking comes along a little bit, but it's never, no ways near. Gilbert Burns is kind of an anomaly. There's not many guys like Gilbert Burns who can kind of transition as well as he did, have power in his both hands, and have a great grappling game. Usually it's like one or the other. You're either a really great striker and your grappling's okay, or you're a really great grappler and your striking's okay. It's usually one or the other. And that's RDR, and that's something that Mearchart can exploit, but Mearchart also doesn't have great striking. It's not like his striking is just overly good, so I think it could be interesting if it hits the ground, but I think RDR is just going to be able to, exploit Mearchart's takedown defense. He's going to be able to get on top of him. He's going to lock his hips down. He's not that traditional style wrestler where Mearchart's going to be able to, unlock and trying to throw something up and submit him. He's going to be privy to everything that Mearchart's trying to do. He's been in this world before. So I'm going to go RDR. I'm going to take RDR by decision. I think they're going to not cross each other out on the ground, but I think they're going to be able to kind of stay safe. And I think Mearchart's the ones who's going to have to be fighting more on the defense in this fight than RDR. So I'm going to go RDR by decision. Next one, and the last one we're going to break down. But before we do that, we're going to bring Mackenzie in for her pick of the week.
Welcome back to Mackenzie's Lock Pick of the Week. I'm Mackenzie, the queen of violence, as everyone calls me. Jillian Robertson is an interesting fighter. She's not the most consistent in the division, but she can grapple with the best of them. The drop down in weight might be a godsend for her, considering she might be at a point in her career where a prime is clicking. Pinheiro is a fighter that doesn't really look like she's going to pan out as expected. She has a back of getting finished, and she's on a 2-fight losing streak. So give me Jillian Robertson to soak up a submission here at plus 120.
All right, then the last fight we're going to break down Pinheiro versus Jillian Robertson. Now, those of you guys that follow me, I have a love-hate relationship with Jillian Robertson. I always did. I probably always will. This is a girl who's super, super young. And you'll hear me not talk about her, talk bad about her, but I tend to be very highly critical of her because I really believe that she has a higher ceiling than is being valued, and I don't want to take anything away from her trainer, Thomas, just for the mere fact that he is a brilliant mind. You hear Dim Thomas on all the UFC events. When they ask him, you'll hear him in the background. They'll ask him a question, he'll answer it. He's a brilliant mind. But the fact of the matter with him is he leans on his black belt for her so much that he forgets that this is MMA and it's not grappling. And he's done that for years. And that was my biggest gripe with her towards him for a long time. You have a girl who's a slick grappler. She's got good arm bars. She's got good chokes. She's got good back takes. But she has terrible wrestling. And her striking it's very pedestrian. So what good is having your black belt? This is your protege, your black belt, but she can't get it to the ground. Or she can't strike worth the shit to get inside to even, get some kind of a body lock or get close. So I used to see anytime she used to fight, and this is for a while, I was like, why? Like, why won't this guy just, how can he not see this? He's watching all these other fights and he's breaking all these other fighters down. He's saying, well, he's got to do this and she's got to do this, but you can't implement that with your own fighter. Like, what's going on here? So as time went on, little by little, you see Jillian Robertson making these strides. She's still only 29 years old, which is crazy to me. I feel like she's been in the UFC forever. But little by little, she's making these strides, and she's obviously changed the weight division. Now she's at 115. She's got the grappling. Her wrestling has gotten a little bit better. Her hands are getting a little bit better. And I think her hands are getting better because they're working them more. And when you work them more, you grow more confidence. So it's almost like walking into a room and you're either fit or you're not. Like sometimes if you're just not fit and you're walking into a room with a bunch of fit people, you kind of walk in and but if you feel good about yourself, you got a nice haircut or whatever the case may be, you walk in, you got your shoulders back and you're walking high, you feel confident. Same thing with anything else. Same thing with this. So it's with her striking. She's been working her striking. So if you see her, she's not kind of cowering away like she used to when she's striking. She used to kind of cower away and she used to throw more defensively. Now she's kind of stepping in and she's biting down on her punches. And you could see that's just confidence. That means she's working certain combinations. She's working certain footwork. She's doing things in the training room that she sees that are working and she feels confident with implementing them. Not great. It's not tremendous, but she's definitely taking strides there. And the wrestling too, she is taking more shots and the shots seem to be a little bit more explosive. She's just not like falling into you and hoping that you fall, or she's going for these weak inside trips, or she's going in with some kind of conviction now. When you look at Luana Pinheiro on the other side, you're looking at a girl who, I expected a little bit more from her, if I'm being honest with you, but here's my problem with her, and I've always said this since the beginning of time. Judo is a very overrated martial art for mixed martial arts. It's very overrated. I said that if you look at the history of the UFC, how many judo players have become champions? Or how many great judo players have there been? You have Ronda Rousey, but I really don't consider her that good. She was just a product of her time. She could not compete with any of these girls today. You had Carl Parisian back in the day, who was a good judo player, but he never really went anywhere. Like, there was never really any great like MMA fighters that like took off with judo. Like, they just leaned on judo. Purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, she's got decent grappling, but the judo's not going to cut it. Like, the judo will help you with your takedown defense. People will be a little bit weary coming into on your hips because they know you got throws, you got certain things that you can do to kind of nullify them. But last two fights, her last fight against Michelle Waterson was a split decision. Then she fought in the Hiba. She got caught with a spinning wheel kick. Then she fought Angela Hill, and she got submitted by Angela Hill, which is kind of weird. So it just doesn't look good for her. Like, it doesn't look good for her in this fight. This is a fight where Jillian Robertson is at a point in her career now, 29 years old, where she's hitting a little bit of a maturity stride. She lost to Tabitha Ritchie. She came back. She beat Polyana Viana. She beat Michelle Waterson. Now she's in a spot where she can go 3 in a row. And the UFC does like her. The UFC does like Tim Thomas. Like, they're going to put her in some spots maybe to give her a little bit of a push to see what she could do, because now she is on this win streak. It's funny with her because if you look at her over the past, couple years, her patterns are 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 wins. So get her over that hump now to that 3rd win, and then we could talk a little bit. See what kind of victory. Is she going to go to decision? Is it going to be boring? Is she going to take this girl down in the first round and sub her? So this is more of a let's figure out where Jillian Robertson is in this performance, and then we could start talking about bumping her up a little bit and making a little bit of a run with her at 29 years old. So my official pick's going to be Jillian Robertson by submission. Guys, if you haven't seen the site yet, if you haven't been over to the site yet, the madlabmma.com, go over there, check it out. We do everything from mixed martial arts to boxing to football. We've been doing really well with the football. The roster bully tool has been really doing, it's been, I don't even want to say overachieving, but it kind of has in a way. If you look at we have everything categorized within slate breakers and sleepers, and we have caution tape around certain fighters, meaning like you could play them, but play them with caution. We have sits, we have definite starts, and if you look at like the labels on them, a lot of them are hitting. So it's kind of catching its stride. This is a new product, and it's kind of catching its stride halfway through the season. And then you got Contrarian Corner with D-Rock, who every week this dude is hitting one or two like gold nuggets for you to put into your lineup. And then we have the whole team doing wagers. Wagers are, I'm very transparent. The wagers have been up and down with football. Some weeks we have really good weeks, some weeks not so good weeks. It's been kind of one of those years. But everybody's in there every week, plugging, pushing out good plays. You don't got to sit on one guy and say, I'm going to follow all his plays. You got about 5 or 6 guys to choose from. And you say, well, I like this one from Mad Lab. I like this one from, J-Mac. I like this one from Marangelli. So you can kind of pick, whatever you want. But there's no lack of wagers for football. And that's free with your membership. So come by, check us out. And that's it. And I will see you for UFC 309, which is going to be a monster card. I'll talk to you later.